Have you ever had one of those moments? You're staring at your screen. The afternoon light hits your eyes just wrong, and suddenly they feel like they're filled with sand. You blink, you squint, you rub your eyes, hoping that uncomfortable, gritty feeling will finally disappear. And like most people, you probably blame the screen, the air conditioning, too little sleep, or maybe you simply tell yourself, I'm getting older. But what if there's another piece of the puzzle? What if one of the foods that may support your eye's natural defenses is something most people have never even heard of? Not a carrot, not a blueberry, not even a leafy green. I'm talking about a tiny bright orange berry that grows on a thorny shrub and contains a very unusual fatty acid. That has attracted attention for its potential role in supporting the tear film. That keeps your eyes comfortable. And this is where things get really interesting, because today we're counting down 3 surprising foods that researchers have studied for eye health, and the first one may completely change the way you think about what your eyes need as you get older. So stay with me, because number 3 is a tiny orange powerhouse most people walk right past. And by the time we reach number 1, you may be looking at your kitchen a little differently. Have you ever noticed how your eyes can feel completely normal in the morning, but by the time evening arrives, something feels different? Your eyes feel dry, a little gritty, a little irritated. You blink more. Maybe you rub your eyes, and sometimes you reach for eye drops just to make them feel comfortable again. But here's what most people don't realize. Your eyes don't simply need water. They need a healthy tear film, a thin, delicate layer that keeps the surface of your eyes smooth, comfortable, and protected. And as we get older, keeping that tear film working properly can become more difficult. But this is where our number 3 food gets really interesting, because hiding in plain sight is a tiny orange-yellow berry that most people almost never talk about when it comes to eye health. Sea buckthorn. And there's something particularly interesting about this unusual berry. It contains vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids. But one compound is what really makes researchers pay attention: omega-7. And this is where the story gets fascinating. Researchers have investigated whether sea buckthorn oil could influence dry eye symptoms and certain measures related to the eye's tear film. In one human study, people experiencing dry eye symptoms who consumed sea buckthorn oil showed improvements in some measures compared with those receiving the control. Now let's be very clear. That does not mean sea buckthorn cures dry eye. It doesn't. But it does give researchers a legitimate reason to keep investigating this unusual little berry. And there's another clue you can actually see with your own eyes. Look at its color. That intense orange-yellow color comes from naturally occurring pigments, including carotenoids. And certain carotenoids are important compounds found in the eye, which is one reason researchers continue to be interested in colorful fruits and vegetables. But there's a catch. Sea buckthorn is extremely tart. We're talking seriously tart. So you're probably not going to sit down with a bowl of sea buckthorn berries, the way you might with strawberries or blueberries. Instead, people may use small amounts of unsweetened sea buckthorn juice, or powder mixed into water, yogurt, or another food. But before you buy it, there's one thing you absolutely want to check: the label. Have you ever walked into a dark room and for a few seconds felt like you could barely see? You know the room is there. You know the furniture is there. But your eyes need a little time to catch up. Then, slowly, shapes begin to appear. edges become clearer, and suddenly you can see much better. That process is called dark adaptation, and it may be one reason this tiny deep purple berry has fascinated researchers for decades. Bilberry. Now you might be thinking, wait, isn't that basically a blueberry? They look similar, but they're actually different berries, and bilberries have something that makes them particularly interesting. Their deep purple color comes from natural pigments called anthocyanins. These plant compounds have antioxidant properties, and researchers have been investigating whether bilberry compounds may influence certain aspects of visual function. But here's where the story gets fascinating. During World War II, a famous story began circulating about British pilots. The claim was that they were eating bilberries and somehow seeing better at night. The story became so popular that it eventually turned into one of the most famous legends surrounding bilberries. But was it actually true? That part is still debated. And honestly, the legend isn't what interests me most. The research is. Because eventually, scientists asked a much better question. Could bilberry compounds actually affect how our eyes perform? And researchers have tested that question in humans in a 2015 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. Researchers gave office workers experiencing computer-related visual fatigue either bilberry extract or a placebo. The bilberry group received 480 milligrams per day for 8 weeks. And compared with placebo, some measures of computer-related eye fatigue improved. Now, this doesn't mean bilberries can restore lost eyesight or give you perfect night vision. The study looked at visual fatigue, not vision restoration. But that's exactly what makes bilberry interesting. Researchers weren't studying a miracle cure. They were investigating whether naturally occurring compounds in this small berry could actually influence aspects of visual function. And bilberries aren't just about anthocyanins. They also provide vitamin C and other plant compounds, adding to their nutritional value. So how can you actually use them? One simple option is to make a warm berry infusion. Add about a teaspoon of dried bilberries to a cup of hot water. Let it steep for about 5 to 7 minutes. And if you want to combine it with another nutrient-rich berry, you can add a small amount of dried goji berries as well. Goji berries contain their own carotenoids, including zeaxanthin, a pigment naturally concentrated in the retina. So you're getting 2 different types of plant compounds in one simple drink. We've reached number 1, and this final ingredient may be the most surprising of them all. Because it's not a berry, it's not a seed, and it's definitely not something you need to eat by the handful. It's a spice. Saffron. Those tiny crimson red threads have been used in cooking for centuries. But researchers became interested in saffron for a very different reason. Your eyes. More specifically, the delicate cells inside your retina that help your brain process what you see. And this is where things get interesting. Saffron contains natural compounds called crocin and crocetin, which have antioxidant properties. Scientists have been investigating whether these compounds could help support retinal function, particularly as we age. Why? Because your retina is incredibly active tissue. It consumes a lot of energy, and that constant activity leaves retinal cells exposed to oxidative stress. So researchers began asking a fascinating question. Could something as small as a few strands of a spice actually influence how the aging retina functions? In one randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial, 100 adults over the age of 50 with mild to moderate age-related macular degeneration received either saffron or a placebo. The saffron group took 20 milligrams per day for 3 months. Then the group switched, and researchers measured their visual function. The results. The saffron group showed a modest improvement in best-corrected visual acuity compared with placebo. Researchers also observed changes in measures of retinal function. Now, that doesn't mean saffron is a cure for age-related eye disease, and it certainly doesn't mean that eating more saffron will automatically give you better vision. But it does raise an intriguing possibility. Could this tiny spice be doing more than simply adding flavor to your food? So how could you actually use saffron in your routine? You don't need much, and that's important. Think of saffron as a small culinary addition, not something to take in huge amounts. You can steep a few threads in warm water for several minutes and enjoy a simple saffron infusion. You can also add a few threads to warm milk or another unsweetened drink. So your eyes may need more than just a break from the screen. They also need the right nutritional support. From sea buckthorn and bilberries to saffron, these foods offer some fascinating compounds. Researchers are continuing to study. None is a miracle cure, but adding a variety of nutrient-rich foods to your routine can be one simple way to support your eye health as you age. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more evidence-based tips for healthier aging.